Okay, so now we're starting chapter 20, and this is about the resurrection. And so I'll start reading. The first day of the week comes Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre. That's the same word as meaning the tomb. And sees a stone taken away from the sepulchre. Well, we find out from other Gospels, and I'm going to read some from Matthew, that she wasn't alone. It was Mary and Joanna and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. So it was those 4 women that we have a record of going to the tomb. And so when it says she came early in the morning when it was dark, you got to understand something about the Jewish calendar. A day starts in the evening and goes all the way to the next evening. The sign for that is when there are 3 stars visible in the sky. One day ends and the next day begins. So Sunday actually began in our calendar on Saturday night. So he rose sometime during the night because they got there early in the morning when it was dark. But see, he still rose on Sunday, which is the Feast of First Fruits. He fulfilled that feast day when he rose from the dead, because he was the first fruits of them that slept, them that are dead. He was the first one to resurrect, and then others will resurrect after that. So now I'm going to go to Matthew 28 and read some more of the story there, because John doesn't tell all the details that the other ones tell. It's like the Gospels, you got to put them all together to get the whole picture. So this is what Matthew says. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled the stone from the door and sat upon it. And while the women were walking, in Luke it says, they were saying to each other, which is logical, how are we going to roll the stone away? It would take a very strong man, or at least 3 men, to roll the stone away. Now this is what's interesting to me, that this angel comes down, and you know that stone, I told you it had the seal on it from Pilate, and I told you the stone would go downhill so it would be in place. He just rolls it uphill, and you know what? He shows his authority over Pilate by sitting on the stone. I think that's really interesting that he says, I'm just going to sit on this. It says in verse 3 that his countenance was like lightning and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers or the guards did shake and became as dead men. So they just started quivering. They were shaking. I mean, I think we would do the same thing if we saw an angel.
Yeah.
Think about somebody whose face is as bright as lightning. And the angel answered and said unto the women, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come and see the place where the Lord laid. And then the angel told them, Go quickly and tell his disciples that he's risen from the dead. And behold, he's going before you into Galilee. There ye shall see him. And then he says, Lo, I have told you, meaning I did my job. Because the word angel simply means messenger. So God used angels as messengers, and that's what he did right here. And they departed quickly from the sepulchre with fear and great joy. That's quite a combination. And did run to bring the disciples the word. But as they went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them, saying, now this is the very first appearance of Jesus. And he appears to women. Now they were going to the tomb with their spices because they wanted to anoint his body more, because they cared so much about him.
Exactly.
Not even thinking, how are we going to get the stone away? I don't know what they were thinking, but they did it anyway. So they were the ones who the angels gave the message to. So Jesus appeared to them and said, rejoice. And they came and held him by his feet and worshiped him. Then Jesus said unto them, Be not afraid. Go tell. Now he doesn't say my disciples like the angel said. He said, go tell my brethren. So he's not referring to them as disciples or apostles or slaves or friends. He's referring to them as something that is much closer than that. My brothers. So he says, Be not afraid. Go tell my brethren that they go into Galilee, and there they shall see me. Okay, so this guard, these soldiers that they had gotten from Pilate, they're finally coming around. And in verse 11 it says, Now when they were going, behold, some of the watch came into the city and showed unto the chief priest all the things that were done. Well, just think about that. They thought they just had this all sewed up. With Jesus dead, they got a guard from Pilate. They got the seal on the stone. They just think they're done completely. Now, all of a sudden, these guards are talking about a miracle. That an angel came and rolled the stone away. And when they were all assembled with the elders, this would be the chief priests, and had taken counsel, they gave a large amounts of money unto the soldiers, saying, Say this, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we slept. Well, first of all, what is a guard doing sleeping? I don't know how they get away with that. Right. Sleeping on the job. What's Pilate going to say? But they're hoping this doesn't get to Pilate. It says, And if this come to the governor's ears, we will persuade him and make sure nothing happens to you and secure your safety. That don't worry, we'll take care of Pilate. So they took the money and did as they were taught. And this saying is commonly reported among the Jews until this day. Now I'm going to go back to John. Okay, I want to inject something right here, and that is that I think that when Jesus appeared to those women, I don't think Mary Magdalene was with them, because Jesus ends up making a special appearance to her alone, and she still doesn't believe that he's risen. So I think she must have run on ahead of them to get to the disciples, something like that, because we're going to see that Jesus makes a personal appearance to her. Then she runneth and come to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, the apostle John, and said unto them, They've taken away our Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. That's why I don't think she saw Jesus. But it makes sense with an empty tomb and not believing in the resurrection. She's thinking that the body was stolen by somebody. Maybe the guards took him. She doesn't know, but she wants to find it. She wants to find that body. Peter went therefore with that other disciple and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple, which was John, did outrun Peter and came first to the sepulchre. So he wanted to know that he was a faster runner, but I do believe he was younger. I think I've just heard this from teaching that he would have been about 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
he could run.
Yeah.
And stooping down. Remember I told you they rolled the stone down? She had to stoop down to look into the sepulchre. It was low. Yes. And stooping down and looking in, this is John, he saw, meaning he perceived, he understood the linen clothes lying, but he didn't go in yet. Then after him comes Simon Peter, following him, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and the face cloth that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but folded together in a place by itself. Then went in also the other disciple, which is John, which came first into the sepulchre, and he saw, meaning he knew and believed. For as yet they didn't know the scripture that he must be risen from the dead. I mean, they heard it, but they didn't completely understand it. Then it says the disciples went away and went to their home. Well, when you think about it, what else could they do? I mean, Jesus isn't there, so they go home. But this is a really good example for us. We wait on Christ. He comes to us with a finished work. He comes to us saying, you don't have to earn your salvation. It's all done. He presents to us a finished work, meaning he did everything required for us to go to heaven. Then Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene. Okay, so when it says in verse 10 that they went to their home, it says, but Mary stood without the sepulchre. So she was there when they were there. She probably followed them back. But Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping. And as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre. And she sees two angels in white sitting, the one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had laid. And they say unto her, Woman, why are you weeping? Because they have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus. But she didn't know that it was Jesus. Now, I don't know if it was because she had so many tears in her eyes, and of course, she thought he was dead. She would never assume that he would be there. Yeah. But the other thing is, Jesus could have hid that from her at that moment. And Jesus said unto her, Woman, why are you weeping? Who are you seeking? She, supposing him to be the gardener, said unto him, Sir, if you have carried him away from here, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Can you believe that?
Wow.
She wants to take that dead body because she thinks it's dead, and she wants to take it away herself and pamper it with all the love, the spices. She wants to deal with that herself. And when you think about Mary, Jesus had cast 7 demons out of her. And he told a parable about her, saying that he who has been forgiven much loves much. And she loved much.
Yes, she did.
And Jesus said unto her, Mary. She turned herself and said unto him, Rabboni, which means teacher or master. And Jesus said unto her, Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father. What he's saying to her is, stop clinging to me. She was clinging to him.
Yeah.
He says, stop clinging to me, for I am not ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren. He uses that phraseology again, and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and to my God and to your God. Why did he have to ascend up to heaven?
Because that's where he came from.
That's one answer, but he had to ascend right away. But he's saying, don't touch me, because I'm going to ascend to my Father. He's going to do it right now. Yeah. He ascends to the Father right here, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
When you think about the offerings in the Old Testament, that they would kill the lamb, and then they would bring the blood in on the Day of Atonement. They would bring the blood in to the Holy of Holies and put it on the mercy seat, which was a type of God's throne. So he went to the true tabernacle in heaven. Do you know that there's a tabernacle in heaven? And the one on earth was a replica of that. So he had to go offer his blood. He wasn't done with his job until he offered that blood in the true tabernacle in heaven. And I want to read you just a little bit in Hebrews 8, 2, and 5, where it talks about that tabernacle. It says, I'll start out with 1. Now the things which we have spoken, this is a sum. We have such a high priest who is set on the right hand, the throne of majesty in the heavens, a minister of the sanctuary of the true tabernacle, that's in heaven, which the Lord pitched, not man. Okay, now I'm going to read verse 5. Listen to this. who serve unto us the example, the shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, said he, that you make all things according to the pattern showed thee in the mount, because it was an exact replica in dimensions of the tabernacle in heaven. So that's why Jesus said, I'm ascending right now. And then this will be complete. He obviously still had a little bit of blood left somewhere, or maybe he collected it and took it up there. I don't know.
He could have.
He could have.
No.
He could have. I know in Revelation it says that they're going to defeat Satan and his angels with the blood of the Lamb. So it's going to be up there. Now he's going to appear to 2 disciples, not of the 12 disciples or 11. There were a lot of people who followed Christ who were disciples who weren't those chosen ones.
Right.
And these 2, now this is all happening on the day that he rose from the dead. This is Sunday, the Lord's day. And behold, 2 of them went, 2 disciples, went that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 60 furlongs, which means it was about 7 miles. So that's a pretty long walk. Think about it. And they talked together of all the things which had happened. And they couldn't believe that Jesus died, because they thought he was going to come and be the king and get rid of the Romans and, sit on the throne of David and rule over Israel. They just didn't have the right concept of how this was going to work out. And it came to pass that while they communed together and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were holden, meaning that they were restrained, that they should not know him. And I think that's what he could have done with Mary Magdalene too, until she recognized him. And he said unto them, what manner of communication are these that ye have one to another, as ye walk, and are sad? And one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering said unto him, are you only a stranger in Jerusalem? And you have not known the things that are come to pass in these days? These guys cannot believe that somebody in that general area would not know. Art thou only a stranger in Jerusalem, and hast thou not known the things which are come to pass there in these days? And he said unto them, what things? He wants to hear what they have to say. And they said unto him concerning Jesus of Nazareth, which was a prophet. So they think past tense, that he's dead, which was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers deliver him to be condemned to death and have him crucified. But we trusted that it had been him which should have redeemed Israel. And besides all this, today's the 3rd day since these things were done. So they know something about the 3rd day. Jesus told them, he told the non-believers, he told the Pharisees, 3 days and 3 nights on the 3rd day that he was going to rise. And so these guys mentioned that. Besides all this, it was the 3rd day. Yea, and certain women also of our company made us astonished, which were early at the sepulchre. And when they found not his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels, which said that he was alive. And certain of them which were with us went to the sepulchre, that would be John and Peter, and found it even as the women had said, but they didn't see him. Then he said unto them, O fools, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. What he's saying is that the prophets had spoken about him. Ought not Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded unto them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. And they drew nigh unto the village where they were going to. And he made as though he would have gone further, and he would have gone further. But they constrained him, saying, Abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. And he went to tarry with them. And here's the thing about it getting dark, what it meant in those days in that area. It was dangerous. They didn't have street lights. They didn't have policemen. And when it got dark, there could be robbers. Any kind of criminal would be out. You know, they all do stuff in the dark. So at night, people would always go and stay somewhere. They could have been staying at an inn, or maybe one of them had a house there, I don't know. But that was the idea of staying in at night. I want to tell you something about a song.
I love
The song was written by H.F. Light, and it's called Abide With Me. And I just want to read like part of the first verse. It says, Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. That's just what was happening here. The darkness deepens. Lord, abide with me. Isn't that beautiful? That just sprung into my mind when they said, abide with us, because it's getting dark. This person wrote that song after reading this. And it came to pass, as he sat at meat, or sat at the table with them, he took the bread and blessed it and brake it and gave to them. And their eyes were opened and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. This is just like what he did at the Lord's Supper. This was the new covenant, the breaking of the bread, blessing it, breaking it, and giving it to them. This is exactly what he did with his disciples. And he vanished out of their sight. But this is something that we know now from Jesus, and what he's doing here is that the glorified body isn't constrained by the laws of the universe, the laws of gravity, the laws of matter. They do not pertain to the glorified body. So it won't pertain to us when we are in glorified bodies. We can just zip all around.
That's right. I might want to say I want to go to Jupiter for a minute. I want to go to
Boom,
Pluto.
you're there. And they said one to another, Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened the scriptures to us? Yeah, they remembered, hey, this guy was telling us all this stuff about the scriptures, and we were excited about hearing the scriptures. And they rose up that same hour and returned to Jerusalem. Now they don't care about the danger of being out at night. They're excited. They just saw the risen Savior, and they're going right back to the disciples.
They must be overwhelmed.
Absolutely. It would have to be so exciting, we can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
And they rose up that same hour and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered together, and them that were with them. There were a lot more than them, saying, The Lord is risen indeed. Now this is what the disciples are saying. The Lord is risen indeed. They know now already, even before these guys get there, and hath appeared to Simon. We don't actually have that event recorded in the Bible. It was a private meeting. Christ had things to work out with Peter. Peter had denied him, and he was going to give the first message of the church. And they, that means the two men from the road to Emmaus, told what things were done in the way, and how he was known of them in the breaking of bread. Okay, that's going to be it for tonight. And then next week we'll start with his appearing to the disciples.